Scandal rocks Arsenal as Premier League fixtures are released, and Arsenal have found they will be playing everyone, home and away. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith, the Black Man Twitter, Yankee Gunner. It never ceases to amaze me. You'd think, like with a conspiracy, you want to hide it. You want to make it hard to figure out. But every single season, the fixtures come out, and every single season, we play every team in the league home and away. We're on to you, Premier League. We are on to you. And we are on to you being here as part of our podcast, and we want to thank you for that. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Said that already. But I think it bears repeating because I've been tweeting more lately. And because I've been tweeting more lately, I think it is much, much more important that I emphasize the messaging at the top of this podcast that you should not, dare not, dream not of following that account. We've got a few things to cover here today. I think this can be a brisk exercise in covering 3 topics cleanly where I ask crisp questions, the panel answers them directly, and we move on with the rest of our day, he says, knowing it will not go that way. I am in the middle of an air quality alert for those of you enjoying global warming. We have fires plaguing northern Canada, which have sunk down here into the United States, leaving our AQI, or air quality index, so bad that my little daughter had her bike day canceled. So had to deal with that emergency this morning. So I hope wherever you are living okay in a healthy condition and safe somewhere with loved ones. But step away from those loved ones so you can listen to this podcast, obviously. Anyway, I'm waffling on way too long. The Premier League fixtures are out. We've made a bid for Declan Rice, which means our hopes and dreams can be shattered by Manchester City. And of course, there's Kai Havertz news. So let's introduce Paul. You can find him on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Hello, Pause.
Woohoo!
And Clive, you can find him on Twitter, Clive BFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
Clive wants you to know that this podcast has officially interrupted his workout for the day. So if he's a little surly, it's my fault. Started late. He came home early. We interrupted his workout.
Every pound I lose is important, right? I mean, I'm never going to like Denzel Washington if you keep dragging me back from my runs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to just tell you this. They've got that Ozempic thing now, that drug that all the kids are taking. You just take some Ozempic, throw up 4 times a day. You'll be fit as a fiddle before you know it. You'll have cheekbones for days.
That's what I need.
Yeah. So,
new sponsor?
No. We are not going to sponsor abusing prescription drugs that I think are designed to help with the epidemic of diabetes in our country and our world. So let's not do that. By the way, Kai Havertz, we've got a lot of scouting videos over on Patreon.
He is a bit skinny. I see where you're going with that.
He may have been on the Ozempic. Yeah. So we have a Timothy Castagna scouting video, an Ivan Fresneda scouting video. TLDR, he stinks. We have a Kylian Mbappe scouting video. TLDR, he does not stink. But we just released a Kai Havertz scouting video, and it's also a data video. So it's like a little bit of everything. And we'll get into all that, but I want to let you know that's on Patreon if you want to be over there. We're doing our best to try to make this a great podcast and also make that feel like it is worth your time if you will join us over there. So, Clive, let's start with, well, what, you want to do light and breezy first, fixtures, or do you want to dive into the Havertz stuff first?
Havertz, okay, fixtures don't bother me. Fixtures.
Yeah, all right, fine. We'll talk about the fact, we'll talk about the fact that we play everyone home and away later on in the pod. So we'll start with Kai Havertz. This is an interesting one because we did get an Ornbaum saying we're interested, right? We have Fabrizio Romano saying we're interested. So there's enough smoke for there to be fire here. Kai Havertz is a really, really tricky one because this is a classic example of a guy who just a few short seasons ago, people thought he could be a Ballon d'Or winner someday. You know, it'd be Germany's best player. He was an 80 million transfer. And like so many players that went to Chelsea over the last few seasons, quite hilariously, it hasn't panned out as expected. Let's start high level. Before we get into the economics of it, because that's going to complicate this, what's your high-level opinion of the player and whether just from a talent standpoint, there's a fit here?
Yeah, so when he went from Leverkusen to Chelsea for 80-odd million, whatever it was, I was gutted. It's almost like a reminder that they could just get the best talent out of Germany. He didn't go to Bayern Munich, which is a normal route. He went to Chelsea. It's like, oh, man, they're just going to smash it. And by the way, he did score the winning goal in the Champions League final, didn't he? In his first season, which some people just seem to forget. So whenever Arsenal linked to a player, all I try to do initially, I love them all when we're linked, generally. That's my first stance. And then I say to myself, does it make sense? And then we have a close look at the player and we work out the talent level, right? So does it make sense? Well, first things first, you have to ask yourself a question, what do you think he is? And I listened to you talking to Phil and I'm thinking, and I read a lot of stuff online and people have differing opinions about what you think he is. So I just say what I think he is. He's a.
Can I just point out? I think Chelsea aren't sure what he is either.
But let's not. The Chelsea that bought him 2-3 years ago had a bit more sense about them, with a manager on board that knew what he was doing, and they won the Champions League and won the World Club Championship and were the best team in the world for a season. The Chelsea we have today is not that. So let's just scratch that off. They're not looking after talent. They're overbuying talent. They're having to expand the size of their home dressing room in their training ground because they've got too many players. So let's not hold them up as some sort of shining light, shall we? So
yes, fair.
So I think for me he's a centre forward. I was talking to James yesterday, and he's a 9.5, and he's somebody that can play 9, first and second striker. For me, down the centre, nice receiving of the play. But the number one thing I look for is intelligence, IQ. And I think our team is built on high IQ, people that understand each other, the one brain football. So the first thing I look for is, can he play with other brainy players? And I would say, yes, he absolutely can. The fact he's 6'3", 6'4", I quite liked, because we haven't got anybody of that profile in the team. So again, that makes a bit of sense. And then you come back to, is he good enough? Well, when he came out of Germany, we thought he was good enough. Then we saw he was good enough. Then he seemed to lose a little bit of spirit. And some of the things that don't look so good, I think are like, is someone's engaged or not? And when someone's engaged, you see somebody more intense, see somebody more clued in. And I think he's lost a bit of engagement and spirit at Chelsea. Shock horror, he's not the only one, right? So, but I heard you talking, and I think we can almost name the podcast Stock Falling, maybe Eddie Nketiah, because that for me is the central role that I see him taking up. Jesus is quite versatile, and I think this offers something else, which brings in other players in our squad who are underdeveloped, controlling wide men in Trossard, in Vieira and Smith Rowe, that could play with a slightly taller forward. So I can see the sense in this, and then it becomes a question of opinion of the player's quality, financials, and all the other things associated to it. But from a sense point of view and talent point of view, it works for me.
Yeah. I mean, we can get into the position of it too in a minute. I mean, I think there's a real question. The question with Havertz, Paul, seems to always be, at least since he left Germany, where does he play? And on the scouting video, the thing that struck me is he picks up a lot of different positions, but a position you see him in a lot is between the lines, edge of the attacking third, in the half space. And there's a guy that wears number 8 for us who stands in that position. And there's a guy who wears 34 for us who's leaving, who stands or is meant to stand in that position. And if you're going and getting Declan Rice, if you're even thinking about a Caicedo, if you still have Thomas Partey, suddenly maybe you have the robustness to have twin 8s, proper twin 8s in Havertz and Odegaard. And the thing I will say about Havertz watching the scouting video is, I know he's slight, but he gets his body between the man and the ball. He will pin a defender. He's got an incredible aerial duel win rate. He is a tall forward of sorts, despite his slight frame. He's not dispossessed particularly a ton. He's got great ball recoveries for a forward. Like, statistically and from a scouting standpoint, he does a lot of the things I think we want our 8 to do. And oh, by the way, he's got those tricky feet and more end product instinct than maybe, a Xhaka has. And if you see us needing to turn that position into more of an attacking third player, that would be it. We've sort of had this idea that Declan Rice is coming in to play left 8. It's always felt like a weird fit for me. I don't know. Again, I don't want to get into the financials of it yet, because that's a component we have to discuss. But a left 8 of Havertz with options of Partey and Rice behind, that feels robust enough to support that kind of setup. Not to mention that, oh, by the way, then you have a guy who can play if Saka needs rest, who can play if Jesus isn't available, who can play if Martinelli's not available, in addition to Trossard. And suddenly, instead of saying after Trossard, we're looking at guys like Nketiah and Nelson, now you're looking at a guy like Kai Havertz, who at one point in time was thought of as one of the best players in the world. It is that post-hype thing, right? That he was that at one time, maybe, everybody thinks they can fix the broken toy, right? Maybe we can fix him. So what do you think, Paul? What's the role, the principal role that you would see him coming in to play for us?
That's a good question. My first reaction to him was the left 8 spot. But I just don't see enough defensive thinking, responsive. Like he loses that Xhaka balance that we had before. But the thing I was thinking, what will our left 8 look like this time around? And the one thing we really lack with Jesus coming deep, dropping in, and with the way we play is players who run beyond, players who run in behind. Because Jesus will typically come to the ball. And Havertz is a fantastic runner in behind her. That's the bit of the left 8 I think he could really give us from that side. And against many teams, depending on who's in our midfield with Rice, maybe that's enough. What he will do for us defensively to a degree would be enough to cover that side. Still feels a little light, especially with Zinchenko behind him. I could imagine different configurations. Apparently, rumors breaking, and we might get into that one on whether we're still interested in Caicedo or not. But if that was the free man joining Rice in midfield, you got a lot of cover. A Caicedo type joining Rice in the 2 in midfield starts to give you the kind of cover you could play Havertz in most games, but it just seems a little light on that side with Zinchenko. So, and then you start to think, well, if he's just alternating with Saka and with Jesus, it's a lot of money for a guy who, isn't a nailed-on starter as your left 8. So I do have questions over that, if he can add a little more defending to him. But he does seem, as you said, a between-the-lines player and a guy the most likely to make that run in behind their back line. I think he's a brilliant player. I think his vision, his spotting passes for other players, he's kind of a very attacking 10. Who's physical to a degree. I think he has all of the physicality he'd need to play defensively, but he's just wired to attack and score goals and attack the box and run in behind, which I absolutely fucking love.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about acquiring attacking talent where you just have a cluster of players and you can put any amount, like Jesus could play off the right. He hasn't done that for Arteta, but he can, right? I mean, Saka and Martinelli can swap. Trossard can play 9 or left. Havertz could probably play left 8, right wing, or false 9. And you suddenly say, because here's the thing about taking your squad up a level. If you've got a guy in your squad, I really believe this, you guys. If you have a guy in your squad that you really don't want to start, you don't got to have a guy in your squad. And whether you rate Reiss Nelson or not, Mikel Arteta has trusted him at times, and he's really come through for him. Mikel Arteta has not shown that he wants to start Reiss Nelson in the Premier League, let alone the Champions League. Mikel Arteta has shown that he would prefer not to start any Nketiah, to be fair. I mean, he's only really done it when his hand has been forced. But he had no hesitation starting Trossard, right? What I'm saying is, if you're sitting there and it's match day and Saka can't play, or Jesus can't play, or Odegaard can't play, and Kai Havertz has to start, I'm not saying that's your ideal, but no one's got a problem with that. If you've got to start Vieira or Nelson, it's a much bigger delta in terms of knowing what you're going to get and preparedness at that level, whether that's Champions League or Premier League. And when you start to add players like Trossard and Havertz, and now you can name a group of Jesus, Saka, Martinelli, Havertz, Trossard, Odegaard, it starts to feel like the quality and quantity you need to go compete on multiple fronts. I don't want to get to the economics of it just yet, because I think there is a question about the economics that I think is an important one to answer. But Clive, do you, just from a who is this player standpoint, comfortable off both feet, can play the big switch, very technical, very, very high technical level. So when he's in the box, he's just very quick with his feet. Some of his vision, I mean, some of the vision he displayed in the scouting video is really, really good. And I will say, we've squinted to see better players in worse players. Mudryk would come to mind in scouting videos than we had to with Havertz. So can you just expand a little on who this player is? And if you want, maybe that thought about building a cluster of attackers instead of thinking about this player for this position and this player for that position.
Yeah, I think as I heard you say there, he can play here, and Paul's saying he can play here, and he can. I think we may need to change our nomenclature around this. It's more or less, can he receive the ball in that position? Can he receive the
Can
ball
I stop
out
you on
wide?
that? He's extremely elite data-wise in receiving the ball in the attacking third and around the penalty area. He's an elite receiver of the ball.
If you look at the way we play, we have a front five and a back five, right? You can choose your configuration where they stand, etc. Game states, all the rest of it. We're not dumb, but we need a player that when he stands in a certain position, he receives it. He doesn't look like a fish out of water, right? He can receive it and do things with it, and so you're looking for the art of what's possible. So when someone receives a ball in a certain part of the pitch, what you don't want to feel as a fan is the options decrease. You want to feel like the options are increasing because you have the ability to receive it, turn around, create, shoot, move, dribble, whatever that is. And so when a player gets in those positions, you want to feel as though anything could happen. So when Jay Juice gets the ball, we're all excited as he punches his way past people or drops it off and goes again. When Saka gets the ball, Martinelli gets the ball, we're all on our toes because the possibilities are endless due to their ability. Same for Odegaard. Trossard's a bit more cute, but he's worked out a way of combining with our players and creating assists and last passes with them. And Havertz has the same intelligence and ability to receive the ball inside, receive the ball on the outside, then come inside, knock it off, get it back. He can stay in the box and obviously score goals. There's numbers around his headed goals. And so it creates an option that we don't have. He's more or less not where he's going to start. It's where his ability to receive the ball in certain places. And the players that are dropping away from our squad either are not able to receive the ball in certain places, not able to keep the ball in certain places, and for defenders, not able to stand in areas long enough for us to play the football we want to play. And so it's becoming quite clear our style and the type of things that we want. And I'll go back to my phrase, one brain, and what we've become so accustomed with. We don't take thick players, mate. We don't accept it. We don't accept thick players that don't pass the things that we see. We're experts now. We can see all the moves, all the groove. We can see it. We can see the pace, the different change of gears. We're not accepting someone else who can't see it. We're just not. We're not going to accept, I'm going to say this, we're not going to accept a pure speed power merchant that can't find his teammates in a lineup. Do you know what I mean? We need people that we work in a collective manner. We need people that have physicality, but also can look after the ball in a way that makes us go forward in a cohesive way. So we're moving forward, and this type of player, whether we end up with this one or not, is the type that I think we need, which we don't currently have in the squad.
Yeah. I mean, Paul?
Yeah. So I have a question for Clive in that.
I love when he does this.
I agree with all of that. But before I give up my, yes, but who'll be the left eight? Within the 5 players we might have up front, somebody's got to have a little more, that slider player we've always had from when we argued whether Xhaka was really beginning to play as an attacking left eight, or could be right eight. Like, I do see this guy Havertz as, if Odegaard's out, like the first guy I want on the pitch instead of Odegaard as backup would be Havertz. So I can see him in that 10 spot on the right-hand side. But somebody's got to be a little bit more of a slider defensively, it feels to me, and a little bit more physical out of that front 5. And he certainly has the physicality, and he's got the sparkiness to get stuck in, etc. But does his brain wire that way, that that thing Xhaka does where he spots when we need to sit back a little bit or drop into the back line or cover this guy or cover, like we have used Xhaka as a left eight, we've used him as a left full back, as a left center back. Now we're moving away from that, but he's always had that. What does midfield need right now? What does our back line need right now when we're pushed back?
So it comes down to personal biases, right? So I think Declan Rice will be the left 8. I think Xhaka is a 6-8 hybrid. I think Partey's a 6, a true deep line playmaker. I think Caicedo, although we may not be in for him, is more comfortable as a 6, but he can play 8. So he's a 6-8 hybrid as well. Odegaard for me is an 8-10 hybrid. So he's Vieira.
Yep.
And we tried to make him a left 8. We have used those players, those more attacking players, game state related in the left 8 position on occasions. And it's worked, maybe, for small periods of time. But I personally think if we get Declan Rice, he will be the box-to-box 6-8 player that goes up and down that line and creates. And the possibility with Declan Rice, due to his carrying statistics, will change because Xhaka has done well this year. He's the one player in our team that can't carry the ball. The one player that can't carry it and create new pictures, right? And that's what Declan Rice does really, really well. So for me, Declan Rice is going to be the second midfielder out of 3. But I say that and people are already shouting, but Clive, he's going to be a world-class 6. And he absolutely will be and can be a world-class 6, because he's going to have more passing options at Arsenal. He's not playing with Souček. He's going to have someone else on his side to take the ball off him so he doesn't get pressed like he saw in some of the scouting videos, because Zinchenko and other players will read him what he needs when he's under stress and he won't give the ball up as many times. So yeah, I see Rice as that player. And that player for me is the most important player in the team because he has to do 2 jobs. He has to be part of the front 5 and the back 5. And the only person that could do it for us properly last season was Granit Xhaka. He's the only one with the brains to feel the temperature of the game. If you tell me another player in the league that can feel the temperature of the game, understand what's happening off the ball, can create momentums, create transitions, and burst forward and score, I think it's Declan Rice. I don't think at 24 you want him standing still protecting 2 centre-backs who are already world-class. I think other people can do it. You want him impacting the game, creating transitions, intercepting and driving slightly higher up on the angle. That's my opinion anyway. So
yeah, and that's really the player I'm thinking about in terms of profile. I still can't let go of the idea that Rice will be a bit more of our number 6 than our number 8. But like how you're describing what he does is really what I was talking about.
Yeah,
has Havertz a bit of that, and I don't think he really does. I think he's the other 4 of the attacking 5. You still need that player who feels the temperature, the slider guy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, just in our squad, we happen to have Jorginho and Partey in our squad today. So if they were to go, then this conversation would change. I'll be saying we've got a new number 6 in our team. Do you know what I mean? And but we've got 2 6s. But it's true, isn't it? We've got 2 6s that are sitting there, experienced. Why do you add another 6? We're sitting there, left 8 hasn't got a start. This left 8 we've got in our team has not been allowed to go until we buy the other guy. Does that mean that maybe tells you sometimes what we're trying to do?
But you also have to like expand your mind to say that like what we saw this season doesn't have to be the end point of what we do full stop. I mean, if you look at Manchester City play a center back, 2 tall fullbacks that essentially play center back in most phases of the game. They have 2 midfielders. One of them is John Stones and one of them is Rodri. No one saw that coming, right? Well, what if our lineup is a center back, let's say a William Saliba, or let's say a Gabriel Magalhaes. On one side of him is Saliba. On the other side of him is Ben White. And in midfield, you got Thomas Partey and Declan Rice. And up in front of them, you've got a line of 4, right? That's Saka, Odegaard, Havertz, and Martinelli. And in front of them, you got Gabriel Jesus. That doesn't sound bad, and it doesn't sound lightweight, and it doesn't sound like it's going to lose a lot of duels. Now you say, what do we do with Zinchenko? Well, it's no stress, because some days you're going to play more of a straight back 4 of White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Zinchenko. Zinchenko's going to come into midfield to join Partey or Rice, or whoever's in there, and you switch it up a little. And then maybe Declan Rice then plays the Xhaka role in that kind of structure so that you have a little more robustness. But I'm sorry, if you want to tell me that we're going to go White, Magalhaes, Saliba, Rice, Partey, Saka, Odegaard, Havertz, Martinelli, and Jesus, I'm in, Clive.
I'm just smiling to myself. We can only have these conversations when we have a number of good players. When you don't have good players that can stand in different places and receive the ball in different places, receive it well, the conversations we're going to have next year around rotation and who should play where, they're going to be really good conversations because they are live options, truly live options. And that's what you need to create, live, high-quality options. And now I keep going back to the
Clive,
two
how do you
players.
think City fans, the first time they put this lineup out and Stones is playing who knows where, City fans were probably like, what's he doing? What's going on? Right? Worked out pretty well in the end, but
Yeah, and let's be
you got to
honest,
open your mind a little bit.
I watched those City games towards the end of the season. John Stones was excellent, but he's not a number 8. And if City had conceded the first goal in that final, they may not have scored. They didn't have enough creativity on the pitch, but it suited the game states they were having. They discouraged teams defensively. They invested in a goal scorer, hoping they'll score the goals, and they defensively overloaded and made sure they didn't concede, and they won everything based on that. Percentages, they won everything, and they fair play to them. But these options are going to come. But they only come when you've got good players that can stand in different places. We haven't mentioned Ben White. You haven't mentioned the development of Vieira and Smith Rowe. What could they be in a year's time? We just don't know. And that's the exciting thing, and how they would fit into these configurations. We're using that word configurations because we now have an understanding of what we're going to do front 5, back 5. And the options that are being created are numerous, which is brilliant, isn't it? If we do sign these players, that it's a wonderful way to go forward and to surprise teams, other analysts, shall we say, for the opposition.
Yeah, I just think you look at some of the best coaches in the game. You look at what Klopp did moving Alexander-Arnold and how that shifted things up for them and the impact of that. And you look at what Pep did where he started to use Stones and how he changed it to more of a 3-2-4-1 instead of a sort of 3-4-3 or 3-2-2-3, whatever you want to call it. The numbers stop mattering after a while. And I think Clive's point is right that if you have a cluster of players you really trust at the top level with the right series, the right qualities, you do have other ways to go. I mean, Xhaka had a really interesting role this season. He's never an 8 in terms of his pure attacking capability. He did well, but let's not pretend there weren't games where the slightly leaden-footedness or the slight lack of final ball stuff didn't hold us back. He did so well. I'm not taking anything away from him, but you put a proper left 8 there, you're going to get more. But then the question is, what do you lose in terms of that ability to step back towards party, create, be a little more defensively switched on? Well, if you're 3-2, that's forming the base, has a pivot of Party and Declan Rice, now you can have that more Gundogan-y profiled player in the left 8, and maybe it's Havertz. I just think there's a lot of things you can do if you buy one elite, versatile, around the box player and a Declan Rice. You have optionality, not to overuse a word that I'm not even sure really exists, but we've turned into a word in modern life. There is a component of this, though, Paul, that we have to address, which is simply there are rumors, and I don't know that this is where it is very, very, very difficult to know how credulous to be. But there are rumors. The Athletic did some reporting a couple of years back that Kai Havertz is on £300,000 a week.
Mm-hmm.
The fee mooted is 40, 45, 50. I don't care if it's 0. Kai Havertz is a player who didn't live up to the hype. And ideally, what you want to be doing with those players is getting a bargain versus what they were at the time they were at the hype. I don't know if 50 million and a 300,000 pound a week wage is any kind of bargain. The question is there a way to make this deal in your mind make sense where we can roll the dice that he's still the elite level talent that he was regarded? Because I'll tell you this, the funny thing is if you just look at underlying advanced metrics like expected goals and expected assists, his expected goals plus expected assists, even in his quote-unquote bad years with Chelsea, are right there with like Bukayo Saka. Right? I mean, he's even when he was bad, he still kind of posted some pretty good and encouraging underlying metrics. So is there a way to make the financial side of this work where this deal could actually materialize? Still just 24.
Yeah, look, I find it hard to get super worried about his wages, given that the one part of the story that's very clear is we're talking to him on personal terms, and there's no problem there. The challenge will be finding a fee with Chelsea that they can agree. We might want him to be 40 or 50, but Chelsea wants 70. we're talking about how all in the good reporting at the moment is that all in it could be Arsenal are thinking in terms of 60 all in, which might be 50 plus incentives or something like that. And so there's that dialogue. I think the harder part is going to be the fee with Chelsea, not the wages, even though you might want to have a long conversation on wages and whether we're overpaying and all that kind of stuff. It seems like the club and the player can find a place within our wage structure, and I'm not ready to start tearing strips out of each other on the wages part of it. But I'm ready to talk fee and talent. And I think if you look at this player and if we go for him, like, this is a player you go for because you're going to put him in your starting lineup a lot of the time, most of the time. And you only go for him if you think he's a worldie. And I think he's a worldie. And he's been a worldie at times, even if the one question is in terms of his finishing. And
I'll say this. I wasn't sure if he was a worldie, but at least on the scouting video,
yeah,
the raw talent, the technical level, the close control, the vision, like the way he uses his body to pin defenders, even though he's slight, it's all there. What would be funny, he's a historic underperformer in terms of XG. Him and Gabriel Jesus, there's going to be a few games where we're like, how did one of them not find the back of the net while they're having 3-yard shots squirt wide of the post?
When you load up that much talent in your front five, we will literally be walking the ball into the net. So I don't think we should start worrying about his finishing. And he arrives late and all that kind of stuff. When you leave him kind of isolated, as Chelsea have a habit of doing, and say score, that's where you see a player who kind of is an underperformer with XG really starting to struggle. But you put him in a situation where you're just milling around their box, he's going to mop up plenty of goals in that scenario. And like Mikel Arteta, this is another, it reminds me a bit of Ben White, where we might feel, oh, is this an overpay? Arteta knows what he's looking at here with this guy. He's been seeing him in the league. He's been doing competitive scouting and at Arsenal with in the City days and at Arsenal was what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Looking at this guy, knowing what he brings, knowing who he is, just like he did with Ben White. And it might feel at the end of the day, when we see the fee and the wage, we might say, oh, that seems a little rich given how poor Havertz was at Chelsea. But that's like, you're buying the player and his capability and what he can do for the next team, not the past. It's the future. And if Arteta's assessment is, holy shit, that's what we need, we're not going to overpay. We're going to get a guy that Arteta knows how to use and play in 3 or 4 positions, who I think, and based on the numbers we'll see, is being bought because he's a worldly talent. And that's what he's been bought for. He's not being bought because, oh, we got him at a knockdown price at Chelsea. He was underperforming. Maybe we can bump him up a bit. We'll buy him because Arteta says, this guy's a worldie, and he'll be a worldie starting in August.
Yeah, I mean, however fun you think the Saka, Odegaard, White pod is on the right, or Saka, Odegaard, and Jesus when he drifts over there, what if you give Martinelli and Jesus, Havertz on the left, and you have a Havertz, Jesus, Martinelli pod over there, and it's all 1-2s and back heels and through balls, and he's good at heading the ball. It gives you some of that tall forward stuff. Another guy who can, I mean, as slight as he is, his numbers for aerial dual wins are good. The other thing you get, I don't think it's an accident that in Rice and Havertz, you have 2 guys who are pretty high up there in terms of ball recoveries. We're going to play front-footed football, right? He has a little of that Jorginho thing where he arrives early. He tries to take the ball early. I think...
And can I add one other thing in that mix? I'm obsessed with the guy who'll make that run in behind, that the one that just unbalances their back line, their centre backs, keeps fucking popping up right in, making that little darting run one way or the other. He's such a brilliant,
Aaron Ramsey run.
Yeah. Well, I would say, no, even more forward. Ramsey kind of tended to arrive late. Havertz is, like, they use him as a 9 in part for a reason. He's always aggressively looking for that run in behind, and we don't have that at the moment. apart from our two wingers who, like, there's always two guys on and everybody's looking for that running behind, like, Odegaard's never going to do that. Jesus is always looking to come deep. Clive's often talking about runs in behind from your centre forward. But the left 8, because we're always going to have a bit of a false 9, the left 8 is, and we saw with Xhaka quite often he'd make that run in behind, but not to the level somebody with Havertz's athleticism, speed, quickness, ability to hold up the ball when he gets into that position and set somebody else off. Like, that just destabilizes a back line. His ability to arrive behind the centre backs for the killer ball, oh man, he'd kill them.
Yeah.
Kill them.
And look, there's a part of me always that has a little bit of the taste of vinegar in my mouth when we're talking about Chelsea players, right? Like, when we were linked with Mason Mount, even though I know in the back of my mind Mason Mount is a good player, he just feels so Chelsea to me. Something about Havertz, I don't have that same gut reaction, but I understand it if you're listening to this and you do, because he is Chelsea, and like, dealing with Chelsea brings back some bad memories. I mean, Jorginho did pretty well for us, but we've had some bad transactions with Chelsea. But this guy's 24. If he's ever going to be great, getting him for, let's say, his 25, 26, 27-year-old season, while we're getting Odegaard coming into his prime, and while we're getting Jesus in the heart of his prime, and while we're getting Gabriel Magalhaes in the heart of his prime, and Zinchenko in the heart of his prime. And then we have a couple other younger even players like Saka and Martinelli and Saliba coming into their prime. Like, it starts to look like the zone of 3 or 4 seasons where you could really go do something special. And Declan Rice, by the way, we got to talk about the developments with Declan Rice. We got to talk about the fixtures as well, because the scandal of playing every team twice is really something that we don't want to bury the lead there. But let's do this. Let's close the book on the Havertz thing, other than to say this. Clive, give me your gut instinct on 2 levels. One, is it the right move for us, just quickly? And do you believe that this is something that's going to happen?
I think it sounds interesting, and I quite like it, and I think it could happen. I can ask you a question. When you saw the links to Real Madrid for Havertz, did you think smart or not smart, or do you think, I can see that? Do you know what I mean? Between Rodrigo and Vinicius?
I'll admit I saw it, but like, there was also a part of me that's like, are Real Madrid really going to help solve Chelsea's problem with 50 million for Havertz? Like,
yeah, we have to look beyond that.
We all know Chelsea are drowning in FFP issues and financial challenges and too many players. And like, there is a component to this where you're helping them, but the way you're helping them is you're tearing strips off them. So,
Exactly. And we have to look beyond that, and we have to sort of look after ourselves. And when I saw the Mount links, and I compare how I feel to the Havertz links, I like the Havertz links more for our team, because I think we have players like Mount in our group.
I know that's crazy based on how people relatively rate the players. Mount is a much higher rated player, thought of as being a much better player, and that may be true, but I cannot help but agree with what you've just said.
Because, and the reason why it just makes sense, because we've got Smith Rowe, we've got Trossard, we've got players that do Mounty stuff. Do you know what I mean? And we're trying to develop Vieira. I keep mentioning everyone's not listening to me, but we're trying to develop Vieira. And so we got players, punchy, smaller players that punch 1-2 shoots. We got those. But we haven't got a Havertz. We haven't got a 6'3", 6'4" guy who can play the middle of the pitch. Paul added his running behind ability. And I've seen him at Arsenal live when they just won the European Cup. They came down for the pre-season friendly, and they came down for one of the early league games. And mate, watching him float across our pitch, they were high in confidence at that time. Lukaku, did his bit with Pablo Mari. That's where we were. And it was quite awe-inspiring, actually, and how he moved and how I think he scored against us. It was like we couldn't get near him. And those things
he was killing us on our left-hand side, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. We couldn't get near him. Honestly, it was a different Chelsea then, and we're a different Arsenal now. But I haven't forgotten that feeling. And sometimes when you see players, don't forget how they make you feel at their very, very best. So I do see something there.
Can I just add, the people always go on about Pablo Mari and how his career was ended.
You just say Elliot. You don't have to say people.
May I point out that Pablo Mari ended Lukaku's career that day? That was the last good game Lukaku had, the only game.
Yeah, he thought if I get him overconfident, then the rest of his season will be downhill and career. Okay, well, we're going to move on. I will say that even if you take the dimmest view of the fees we can get, if you get $30 million for Tierney and $15 million for Xhaka and $20 million for Balogun, and let's say this is a prize sale, like Eddie goes for $10 million, and you sell Marie for $7 million, and you sell, there's a few odds and ends players, Trusty for $5 million, and there's a couple other links with players going out for a couple million here and there. You can very easily tot it up to $100 million, even at the low end of what you think these players might be worth. And at $100 million, if you want to buy Rice and you want to buy Havertz and you want to buy another guy for 60, 70 million, your net spend is 120 million. And I know once upon a time that would have made our eyes pop out of our head back in the days when Wenger had us doing this with a positive net spend. A negative net spend, right? Like a profit. But the fact is, these days, if you want to be in this cluster of teams, you're going to spend 100 million every summer net or more, and we can get there with the outgoing. So just something to think about there. Another thing to think about is that it is summer. And the summer means that you are going to be outside more. You may be in the sun more. You want to look good. You want to feel good. You want to protect your eyes from the powerful rays of the sun, and you do it with the iconic brand Oakley sunglasses. Now, I'm going to say this about Oakley. I go around and I see people wearing sunglasses, and the thing I notice about sunglasses, everybody looks the same. Oh, it's like, what random pop-up company has made a sunglass that looks like every other sunglass, right? But Oakleys don't look like that. They have some, I would say, traditional designs, but when you're wearing Oakley sunglasses, you look like you're wearing something unique. And I just feel like having a little differentiation in our personal style is important. I wear the HSTMs. I really like them. The HSTMs are just like they're not like out there, but they're a unique design. I like it. They also have the Prism technology. When you put on a really nice pair of sunglasses, you notice two things: the feel of the construction, like they're not going to fall off your face, but then the polarization of the lenses and the quality of the lens. How clear are they? How much do they cut down on that whatever light band it is that bothers your eyes? Oakley does it brilliantly. Look, you're going to get the most information from Oakley.com. Go there, read up on Prism technology, go to Oakley.com. And while you're there reading about Prism technology, choose a pair that you like and get them and see what it's like to walk around wearing sunglasses that do what they're supposed to do, that feel good, that are all day wear. And oh, by the way, also have a sense of individuality. By the way, Kylian Mbappe wears Oakley. So if you want to support future Arsenal players like Kylian Mbappe, then you can go to Oakley.com and get Oakley sunglasses. Do it now. Okay. Two other things to tell you about just really quickly here. And one of them is, yes, that's right, our friends at AG1. So we haven't talked about AG1 in a while, so I want to refresh your memory if you're new to this. AG1 is a nutritional supplement that replaces your daily vitamin, replaces your probiotic, adaptogens, whole food source, superfoods, nutrients. It is the standard for quality in the supplement category, and it's really just a foundational part of your whole body daily health. Now, the way I take it is in the morning with water, drink it down. I find that it's helped me cut back on coffee. It's helped me with gut health, which is a really big thing for me. I did this, if you have the gummy multivitamins on the shelf somewhere, just turn them around. You will see when it says other ingredients, the number one ingredient is going to be corn syrup or some syrupy related thing or just sugar or whatever it is. So this is a product in AG1 that's also keto friendly, paleo, vegan, dairy free, all that stuff. Just a really good, effective way to take care of your health, your nutrition. And it's a micro habit that delivers macro benefits designed by athletes for athletes. AG1 is top tier nutrition. Now, if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/vision. That's drinkag1.com/vision. Check it out. Last but not least, I really do have to apologize. I know people want the ad reads to be longer, and Mondays was really short. So I'm trying to stretch this one out a little for you. So I hope that compensates for Monday when we had the short ad reads. And I apologize for that. And the person who lines up the ad reads has been sacked. Shopify. Look, it's this simple. Just start an online business. You know how to design t-shirts. You know how to design mugs and hats. You are drawing Arsenal, but poorly. Maybe you have a website like Poorly Drawn Arsenal. That guy's amazing. Check him out, right? My wife does baking. Built her a website for it. I had a website for selling things, and there's only one place to do it is Shopify. Now, Shopify has so many reasons you should be doing this, and I want to tell you about all those reasons right now. Listen to me. One of them is that they make a professional-looking site easy, okay? If someone's going to buy your products may be wonderful, but the first thing they want to see is a professional-looking site because they're about to give you their money, and I think that they have a right to expect professionalism from the website they're shopping from. Okay, you can have videos on it, you can have pictures on it, you can have designs on it, you can add things to cart, you can have those pop-ups that say, hey, would you like to add this to your cart? You can sell on Instagram, you can sell on TikTok, you can sell on Facebook. Not only that, but they can take care of the things like the shipping and the taxes and all that stuff. So you don't have to know about that. All you have to know about is your product that you love, that you care about, that you want to expose to the world, and they will take care of the part of it where the world comes to you and says, wow, your website looks good. They'll help you with SEO. They'll do all that stuff for you, give you help you with the domain so that you have a nice URL. Look, it's the way to build a professional looking website that takes care of all the complicated parts of e-commerce. So all you have to know about is your product. If I haven't made this clear, it's only because I'm talking very fast. But the fact that I'm talking fast shouldn't dissuade you from using Shopify. And here's what you can do. Sign up for a $1 per month trial. $1 per month trial, period. At shopify.com/ArsenalVision, all lowercase. Didn't know that was a thing on the internet, but it is. Go to shopify.com/ArsenalVision to take your business to the next level today. Shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Do it now. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. Declan Rice. Clive?
Yeah.
How good is Declan Rice going to be for Manchester City?
Oh, yeah. Well, if they get him, we might as well turn out the lights and just start drinking a lot, right? Because
you mean more?
Gundogan pops off to Barcelona, and they just drop Declan Rice into that position, and we, twin towers everywhere, right? So, I personally don't want to believe it.
Maybe we should get. Wait. You've given me a brilliant idea. Hear me out. They get Rice. They got all these big players. We find the smallest players we can buy, and we run through their legs and stuff. They can't find us. It'll be like Jack and the Beanstalk. They're trying to chase us, but we're running between their legs with the ball at our feet. They can't find us. They're trying to stomp on us with their huge giant feet. What do you think? Good idea? Bad idea? Elliot, stop talking.
Yeah. So I think the thought process around them getting Rice sort of depresses me. But they have looked at Kovacic, haven't they? And when they looked at that felt really smart, didn't it? Progressive player that plays deep, that can a bit more agile, that can carry the ball, a bit more like Gundogan, profile-wise, right? So, but 3-4 years younger. So, again, smart move. Going to Chelsea, need to get rid of people. Smart move. We have to get used to the fact that players going moving within league. So all those prehistoric biases we have versus other teams, let's get rid of them, because we're going to be selling some of our good players to other teams in the league, because there's only one market that can afford mid-prime or prime players where people can get their money back. You can't get that money back for anyone else abroad because no one's got any cash, right? So yeah, I'm depressed, Elliot, at the thought of it, and I'm just hoping it doesn't happen, because the Rice one, although I always tell people this, I preach this all the time, but I don't preach it to myself, there's always other players, and don't get too hung up on them. But I get hung up on all of them, right? So, and I think Rice is one.
Can I say something on that, Clive?
Yes, mate, go ahead.
I think this is different. I don't see... I'm going to go out on a limb here. Like, Ornstein had his thing, we're talking to West Ham, things are moving along, I'm feeling good. And then he gets to his final line. Oh, and by the way, Man City are thinking of entering the chase, and everybody's testicles got sucked up into their body cavity when that line hits.
So can I say one thing to that?
And to the one thing I was going to say to what you're going to say, yes.
Well, you took a long time getting there, Paul.
I haven't got to the one thing.
I know,
but I want to hear Clive's one thing.
Well, all I will say to you is David Ornstein does not waste a single word.
Yes.
That's all I will say.
Yes.
Right,
so finish your thought, and then we'll
yeah. Here's my one thought. And I agree with you, Clive. But here's my one thought. If it were any other player, Kai Havertz, Caicedo, Mudryk, blah, 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 they can't back off Rice. They just can't. The Cronkies...
Arsenal, you mean? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The Cronkies can't back off Rice. And I
We
don't
won't
think
offer what City will. If they want him as much as we do, they will
you
get him.
say that, and that's the point I'm making here. I don't think in this particular case, without City being absolutely ridiculous, I think we will overpay if that's what it needs to be. And I think Man City are interested in Rice and would love to drive up the price at the same time. So they've
this is
got
interesting.
two reasons. But Rice is the franchise player that our club has determined Arsenal will buy, and this is a statement from Arsenal. They're not going to back off because it went 10 million more than they wanted. I don't see, unless City do something absolutely ridiculous, in which case they put themselves in a spotlight in this league with 115 charges, with accusations that they are buying the league. Now, you might think they mightn't care about that, but they'll care about it a bit, that they'll have to think, do they really want to come against the because what the optics are one team last year gave them a hard time. That team goes for Rice, and the next season they're doing that thing that Bayern does, where they go and kill their opponent in the Premier League, that they're claiming they're not buying, that they only pay 50 million for a player, that their net spend is this, that if they come after Rice and go to ridiculous money and oil state that purchase, it's a fucking terrible look that they will care about. I'm not saying it'll stop them, but it'll make them pause. And on the Arsenal side, we can't back off the one player that we have signaled for 6 months now is our franchise signing going forward, future captain. It's going to be really tough for the Cronkies, and we've seen the Cronkies go big. I'm just saying, this ain't, City came in for Caicedo or Mudryk or this or that.
I hear you. So first of all, I think there's some narrative there, because like the only thing I will say to you, Paul, is this wouldn't be them buying the league. They bought the league last summer when they bought the second best player on the planet, Erling Haaland. Adding Erling Haaland to the team that had just won 4 of the last 5 Premier Leagues,
different optics. The important part of the optics.
Erling Haaland is a much better player than Declan Rice.
No, that's not it. The optics is Arsenal for 6 months have said, this is our franchise player. Arsenal ran them close at the end of last season. Yeah. If they then come and do a Bayern against Arsenal for the player we were after, those are ugly optics that look like trying to buy the league.
I would say this, and this is where I give people a chance to really dislike me, which is sort of vintage ArsenalVision podcast. Declan Rice is not a player you go to any limit for me. Declan Rice is a good player and a player who will make us better. There are players as good as Declan Rice in our league right now. There are players who have the ability to be better than Declan Rice. I don't know if they will be. If you told me the Declan Rice price is moving to 120 million and 300K a week, go get Caicedo. I'd be fine with it. I think we have somehow decided, because we know Arsenal are so interested, that Declan Rice is Mbappe and Haaland in midfield. He might be that. It's not clear he's that. There is no scouting video. There is no data that says Declan Rice is the best midfielder in the world and we should pay like he's the best midfielder in the world. That is speculation, and it's a little dangerous.
Elliot, the important part is that you've said that Arsenal have made this, taken this position.
We don't know that Arsenal's willing to go to. We don't know that they're willing to go to 120 or 140.
No, that's not the part of it. The part of it is the bit where I think you agree that Arsenal have said this is the player, right?
It feels that. I mean, Arsenal have
they rate him as the best player available for this. That's the important thing. Opinions will vary. I hear your view on it. But in this particular situation, for the optics, for the club, like they can't, if their valuation is 90, they can't back off because it goes to 100 or 105. They just can't.
So one thing also, I want to be clear. I think we're going to get Declan Rice. Like, I think the City thing is nonsense. Maybe West Ham are briefing it. I mean, because who could you brief is interested that even sounds legit given the prices being quoted? I mean, Clive, even without City in the picture, you could convince me that we're overpaying for Rice. I like him a lot. I think, as we just laid out earlier in the pod, it gives us the ability to do things. For example, Rice and Partey at the base. If you add someone like you can have a much more attacking left 8 if you have Rice and Partey at the base, whatever it is. So I like the move a lot. We're talking record fees. And the one thing we know from history, you guys, record fees are a coin flip. Record fee transfers are a coin flip. They do no better than 50-50 in terms of their success rate. So, Clive, I like the player. I just think if City are legit in it and it's going to be an arms race, I don't think you have to have an arms race with City over this player if that's what it comes down to. But maybe I'm wrong. What do you think?
Yeah, well, you don't put say this morning said £90 million bid. In totality, you don't do that unless you have confidence the player wants to come. So everything we've read says that personal terms been agreed. That's not a problem. The kid's on 60 grand a week at West Ham. And so basically, there's no problem in him coming to Arsenal and getting his 190, wherever it is, and playing in the Champions League, because that's what's really important to him, lifting his game to a new level. And that's what's going to happen. So everything we've read says he's happy in London, he's got a young family, his family's very supportive of him. I think his father's his agent, his brother's involved in his career as well. I don't see him uprooting going up to Manchester. Right? I just don't see that. Right. So based on everything I've read, so I'm hopeful it's going to happen. Paul's got some validity to what he's trying to say there. What he's trying to say there is almost projecting forward, because this guy comes, he will be the next England captain. I'll guarantee it. And what that means for the club commercially, and what that means for a known quantity, and Elliot, to your point around high transfer fees. Well, high transfer fees for known quantities are slightly different. For example, Jude Bellingham just signed for Madrid today. Fairly known quantity. We've seen his talent at the international level. I'm pretty comfortable he's going to do a pretty good job at Real Madrid. You know what I mean? Pretty comfortable.
I'll also add, Clive, that I think within the league, you have a lot more predictability of performance, right? He's not coming from Ligue 1 or Spain or Germany.
Exactly, and hence we spent £72 million on Pepe. We wouldn't do that today. Well, I just don't think we would. I don't think we'd take that risk. And but again, at the time there were players in the league and they wanted more money, different payment structure, and we was in a different place there financially, and we took the risk, and the risk has not worked. So. Again, so there is a franchise element to what Paul alluded to, but please bear this in mind. The Champions League will be changing next year, and the Champions League will be a top 5 now, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but it will develop into 5 teams from the English League. We need to be in that 5. We have to be in that 5, and we have to be in that 5 for the period where all these contracts are set up to 2027, 2028. That's our window. We want players in that window contracted to stay at the top end of the game, minimum first phase for the next 4 to 5 years. And that's where we are. So we need to focus on that. Declan Rice fits that timeline perfectly, age-wise, ambition-wise. Financially, it's a little bit heavy for me, Elliot, but you know what? We have different views, and the listeners have so many different views on value. You can never really land on the right number for everybody. It's just a conversation that we can have, and how you feel about money and how it's shared out amongst teams locally and in our league, etc. I think this price. I think if you ask me honestly, I think Rice is an £80 million player. That's what I think he is. But in today's market, we're probably going to be 100. What's the big deal? Let's just make sure it happens, because we have a role for him at the club.
Doesn't it feel like these numbers are going up every season, 10, 20 million? I mean, there's been, remember when we got Partey and it was 45 million, and we're really, I know where you were on Clive, you thought he was worth it. 45 million for Partey right now looks like a nothing in this market, absolutely nothing. And the fee inflation, these clubs are looking, where is it going to be in the next year or two? And if you think Rice is your franchise player, Grealish for 100 million, 2 years ago, just look at this wage inflation that's going on. They were looking at Kane for 150 million. The numbers are going huge.
Can't go there forever. That's all I'll say. And it may be the case
and yet it feels like, I know the ESL is not about to happen, but it feels like the big clubs in the Premier League are looking at financials in a way where we're looking at this year, last year, and the year before. They're looking at, where's it going over the next 3-4 years? I don't know what the fuck's happening.
Yeah. And to add to that point, Paul, there's going to be, again, I'm not 100% perfect on this, but there's going to be a World Club Championship with 30 plus teams in it. So all I'm seeing
Something strange is happening.
is more and more games to the same subset of people. So while we start this conversation talking about where would Havertz play, mate, we just need to have a Havertz quality player in our team. Given the amount of football matches we're going to play, because we really focused on 38 last year properly, didn't we? Let's be honest. We focused on the league. And now we need to put another 25 games on top of that. And with a similar focus, because the Arsenal fans' expectations are we're going to be lifting a trophy over our head some point next year, whatever that trophy is. Right? So we need to just get good players into the group primarily. And Declan Rice is definitely one of those. And I'm with Elliot. I think we'll get him. But I'm also with Elliot. Say there is a limit. There is a limit. You have to be sensible. You can't get overexcited like a teenager and blow your plan for the next 5 years because you've massively overpaid for one player. I don't agree with that neither.
I want to read something out, though, that I think is interesting. Adam Ray Vogie, at Adam Vogie on Twitter, who has actually contributed to this podcast in the past, does some interesting research and work on the Canon stat stuff with Scott. And he posted a list of players on £100,000 per week by club. Now, realize this is all off available data. And available data is bad. He didn't have data for Italy, but I just want to read out a few things so this is players on 100,000 a week. What we gave Nketiah, what we're rumored to be giving Nelson, and again, reported wages, but just hear me out. Brighton have 0. Brentford have 0. Fulham have 0. Palace have 1. Bournemouth have 0. Leeds have 1. Southampton have 1. Every single League On team in the entire league, aside from PSG, there are 6 players. Okay? Every single Bundesliga team in the entire league, other than Dortmund and Bayern, 5 players. Every single La Liga team, other than Barca, Madrid, and Atleti, 4 players. Okay? The thing that we have to, Newcastle, 4 players. Now that's going to change, of course. We're seeing a decoupling, a major decoupling. And to your point, you guys, something's going to change. You can't have teams like Manchester City. Chelsea have 24 players on 100K plus. That is more than all the La Liga, all the Bundesliga, and all the League On teams combined that are not the big clubs are at Chelsea on that wage. You can't have leagues where teams like this are competing. You can't have Manchester City with 16 players and Manchester United with 16 players and Liverpool with 16 players and Chelsea with 24 players on 100 plus a week wage going up against teams like Brentford and Bournemouth and Brighton every week that have none. It shows you how great those teams are doing, by the way, to punch at that level. But it is not sustainable. If you caught the Patreon pod with David Hartrick, which I strongly recommend, he said he's a huge Brighton fan. Said, we're going to be relegated in the next 5 or 6 seasons. We know that. So the arms race is an interesting one. We'll see where it goes. I would just say that we decided Declan Rice is our guy. And sometimes when we decide that, we as fans, we decouple from the sense that there is any price at which it makes sense. I got caught up in the Pepe thing big time. We way overpaid for Pepe and everyone knows that. But I didn't care because we were getting Nico Pepe, one of the brightest and most exciting young attacking talents in League One. Now, again, this is Declan Rice. He's coming from the Premier League. He is very, very, very good. Are there other very, very, very good players? Yes. Now, I think, as I said, we will get Declan Rice. I think if Manchester City want him, Manchester City will get him. That. I don't believe they do. I believe we will get him. I believe this deal is almost done. I really believe it is almost done. But I think if they want him, they'll get him. And that's just how that works. And I think that'll be okay if we just go get one of the other really, really, really fantastically good players that are out there that can do some of the things we'd ask Declan Rice to do. Because however good Declan Rice is, I made this point earlier, but this isn't Erling Haaland. This is a very, very good player who will add something to your team. So it's hard, right? Because that's going to come off as though I'm denigrating Declan Rice. I'm not. It's not denigrating anyone to say they're not Erling Haaland or they're not Lionel Messi. I just think you have to have the ability to not get gazumped and have your whole summer come off the rails. We've seen that happen to Arsenal in the past. We've seen the summers where we thought we might want Higuain and we thought we wanted Luis Suarez, and in the end, all we did was buy a goalkeeper or whatever the hell we did, right? You can't have that happen. You can't have that happen. I still think it'll happen. I still think we'll get Declan Rice, and I still think it'll be very good for us. And I think we'll do more than that. And if you just factor in the sales we're going to make, combined with some of the wages that are coming off the wage bill, combined with the addition of Champions League revenue and second place revenue, by the way, there's a lot of money to spend there before we even dip into having the Cronkies fund it some way other than profits, right? There's almost 200 million pounds in profit, additional revenue and profit that's coming into the club. Clive, final thought on this before we talk about the fixtures and some of the shocks of who we're playing and where.
I don't care about the fixtures.
You know you don't, but we're going to talk about it nonetheless.
I do think this Rice transfer is a test for our new status and position. And I think there are people looking, hoping, waiting to laugh if we don't get him. And there are people saying, why do you want to go to Arsenal? They're not big enough. Well, we know the trajectory that we're on. We know that. You imagine sitting there last year thinking that we finished, I don't know how many points behind Liverpool season before. And look how many points finished ahead of them this season. Things can change very quickly if you get your team right. Very quickly. 20, 30 points differential can happen. And so we do need to do this to let people realise it wasn't a one-hit wonder where we picked 14 players and did really, really well to run out of legs. This is who we are. And we're going to get better, and we're serious. And I think it's very important that we do this for those reasons alone is enough for me. Forget the playing stuff, mate, because we all can't wait to see the playing stuff develop over the season.
I totally agree. I would just say that, like, if you look at what tanks a team, like not spending will tank your team, but you know what else will? Get the big ones wrong. Like Chelsea finished in 12th. They spent like maniacs. They just got all the big stuff way, way wrong. Could Liverpool have allocated some of their big money better than they did? Like, I'm still a little nervous that Darwin Nunez could come back and be a monster, just a beast of a player. It's in the frame. But, look at Manchester United. They're the best example of it. Could they have really actually challenged for the title if the Antony money went somewhere smarter?
Yep, they need some forward power and they need some legs in midfield and their defenders. The front two central defenders are not bad, but the rest of them are basket cases, right? So I think there's work to do at all these clubs. We should do our power rankings, Elliot. I've got some new thoughts.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Yeah, so yeah.
All right, let's do it. Clive, stop begging. In the chat, Clive's just like, can we get to the fixtures? Can we get to the fixtures? We can get to the fixtures, mate. It's fine. So, Paul, since Clive wants to do this so badly, I will tease him by letting you do the fixtures first.
Yeah.
So look, the first thing is you want to get your season off to a good start. Nothing's a guarantee. Home to Forest feels pretty good. And a couple of interesting things. City have to start the season away to promoted Burnley. They'll get the Gary Neville dancing with the away fans stuff away to Burnley. Not a fun place to go on a Friday. And they will have played the Community Shield, having lost to Arsenal just the Sunday before. So Pep will already be complaining about the fixtures being unfair and it's not right and they shouldn't have to do it. United have to wait till Monday to host Wolves. We get a Chelsea-Liverpool matchup in the first week, and Spurs have to go to Brentford. Anything about the opening week that jumps out to you?
So I haven't really studied the fixtures. I've just had a casual, quick look at it. I haven't looked at the opening week. I've only looked at Arsenal's fixtures. We have a nice soft start to the league, which is good. I think we need that. I think we need 2 or 3 very, very winnable games. We play Forest, we play Palace away, we play Fulham at home. Then our first big game, United, but at home. Like, you're going to play somebody big in the first 4 or 5 games. So I kind of like that, assuming we're up and at it. Everton away, then Spurs at home. And then City at home. So the first 3 big teams we play are at home. And the first place my eye went to was when's the City game? Because I on my wish list was get City at home before we play them away and lay down. This is the year that we go beyond playing well against them at home, giving them a hard time at home. This is the year that we take points in our home fixture, preferably a win. If it's a draw, but we deserve to win, so be it. We got to start laying down this marker psychologically. So that's really where my eye goes to. When do we play City? Hope we play them first. And like pre-season, off to a flyer, build some confidence with those games. And then we take those fucking bastards at home. So that's the first place my eye goes to. And then my eye goes to the run-in on the other end of it. And it's like, fucking yikes. Our last 10 games... Chelsea at home, City away, includes Spurs away, Man United away, though in our last 10 games. Now, you got to play big teams away, but like the run-in's going to be spicy. So we'll have to be a little further ahead of Man City when it comes into the run-in section of the season. But so beyond that, I have given it no further thought. I like the way it starts. I'm excited about that City game. For me, everything's a build up to that City game because that's when we measure ourselves in the season. Assuming other things are going well and we're feeling our oats and we're starting to play the football and we've come up another notch. That's when you find out whether you've really come up another notch. That's as far as I've got with the fixture list.
Yeah, it's so hard to know because the other thing is you don't like Chelsea games could be really, really hard ones, or it could be like this season where they're a laugher. You know what I mean? It's hard to know because you don't know how good other teams will be. Interestingly, I think the second match day could be a really important one. Like, I know this sounds dumb, but I think what we need to do again is establish ourselves as right there in the title race early. What we don't want to do is be sitting in like 7th or 8th 4 weeks in and having to chase our way back into it. And I think we are better served as a young team proving that we're in the race early. So we host Forest early. You got to win that. One of Chelsea or Liverpool will drop points in the first week because they play each other. And Spurs going to Brentford, City going to Burnley, maybe get lucky. But then in the second week, City play Newcastle. Spurs play United. So one of City and Newcastle, one of Spurs and United, and one of Chelsea and Liverpool, at a minimum, are going to drop points in the first 2 weeks. If we can beat Forest and beat Palace, we will have a points edge on probably a chunk of, if not all of, the top 6, top 7. Right? Let's just say they all draw each other. They won't, but let's just say they all draw each other. If they all drew each other, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, Newcastle, United, and Spurs would all have dropped points in the first 2 weeks. And we could be on 6. Sounds dumb. It is dumb. This kind of analysis is pointless, but it's important for me to say it because I think it could be helpful. It is another season, Clive, I'll just say this, that does set up. What's the one thing Arsenal have in their head right now that the media have in their head about Arsenal? What are Arsenal? We're chokers, right? We're bottlers.
It's all about the running.
We bottled it 2 seasons ago. We bottled it this season. I will say this. If you look at this schedule, these fixtures, we play most of the hard games at home early on. We get to play the Derby, the North London Derby at home, right? We get to host City early on. We could get off to a fast start, but to Paul's point, we got a lot of tough away fixtures on the run-in. It sets up again for us to be in a good position late and staring down the barrel of being called bottlers because we drop a few away games late. But I would still take this setup than the opposite. I would still take being in the title race come April and having an absolute nightmare run-in than being in 7th in April and sprinting to the finish line to finish 3rd or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Joke aside, the reason why I don't want to have to fix the conversation because it's not one at the moment. Because let me give you some scenarios last year that just came out of the blue. So we got Everton away. They changed the manager. First home game, Sean Dyche's first home game. We roll into Everton away. We lose 1-0. No one saw that coming, right? It's just a fixture list, right? So I was in the ground for Southampton and Brighton at home. 1 point out of 6, right? So Brighton are a good side. We recognise that. And Southampton at home, bottom of the league, 3-3 draw. The way we walked into that game, the tension we had, no one really foresaw that. So you just have to treat the fixed list almost on a week-by-week basis and where we are. And I think towards the running towards the playoff months, we're going to be playing ourselves, if anything. I think we've had 2 years now of seeing what we do in April and May, and it hasn't been great. It's been quite similar. differing reasons maybe, but we're now 2 years older and we're now going to have greater depth. And so for me, we're playing ourselves in those games. And I think we saw in the Champions League final what tension could do to Man City, even them, when the prize was so big for them. If we are in a chance for the prize, it's going to be interesting to see how we manage that pressure. It's not about Botley, just managing pressure of wanting to succeed. And I think that's all that's going to matter next year. So I'm with like accumulate. We've got to go through a Christmas that we didn't have to do last year in the same style, through a Christmas with a compressed amount of games. And then we're into the round the corner, right? Accumulate well in January. And then we're into Champions League kicks in again. Hopefully we're still in it. And now every single detail matters. Every moment, every mistake matters. You know, all the flicks and tricks we do in September and October don't mean shit. Thomas Partey lost one ball at West Ham and people want him fired into the sun, right? Because it matters. Because that's the months that really matters. And so we have to focus on those months, right? So that's going to be an interesting scenario towards the end of the season.
And there's a lot of details we can't predict. Like, first of all, one thing that's going to determine how we look at these fixtures is where the Champions League games are, and especially the away games, right? Like,
Who
are we playing? Yeah, I mean, are we playing in Eastern Europe before we have to go to Stamford Bridge, or are we playing Bayern Munich on the Tuesday when we have Luton Town on a Saturday and it's a trap game? Don't worry, I'll explain what a trap game is when the time comes. I promise. I will tell you, going to Old Trafford, the penultimate weekend, like if there's things riding on it, that game is going to feel like old times.
That's going to be a trap game.
That's a trap game, all right.
Talking to
it's
Tim
literally
about
the
that this
opposite
morning.
of a trap game.
Tim has decided that Old Trafford is going to be they're going to have to do the guard of honor for us, right? So just
I love
put
it
it out there.
We won the league at Old Trafford. Oh, actually, it would have been the weekend before. So we won the league at home to Bournemouth. That'd be fine.
Yeah, we were debating.
It was a fun fixture this season.
We'll see what happens.
Listen, our kryptonite. This is the one thing I hate. Unless FA Cup stuff or fixture rearrangement happens, and that, by the way, that can throw this all into disarray. But we go to the Etihad, the first game after that last interlull. And that last interlull has been the death knell for our season, 2 seasons in a row. And we go to the Etihad right after the last interlull. One thing I will say, the run-in has a lot of tough away games. One good thing, you know what you don't want to do in a season, you guys? You don't want to go on a slide. You know what I mean? You don't want to lose 3 in a row. We have a lot of tough away fixtures, but we have pretty friendly home fixtures in between them, right? So we'll like go to the Etihad, but then play Luton at home, right? We'll go to Old Trafford, but the week before that, we're home to Bournemouth. And the week after that, we're home to Everton. So it's spaced out. And by the way, the last thing I care about, Union Chapel, home to Everton the next day. So we can do it on the final weekend again. We can go to the home game again.
5-0.
2 seasons ago, that was 5-0. Yep. So I love it. And I'm looking forward to another season, but let's all take a deep breath and hyperventilate about Declan Rice for a while first. Let's leave it there. Clive's on Twitter, ClivePFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Paul's on Twitter, Pause My Pants. Thanks, Pause.
Woohoo!
This felt like a good one. Let us know what you think. And we will have the Gabriel Martinelli season review for patrons tomorrow. We've got the Havertz, Castagna, Fresneda, and Kylian Mbappe scouting videos up on Patreon right now. We'd love to have you over there, but mostly we're just happy to have you as part of this, wherever that may be. And we'll have info on LA coming up soon, I promise. So we love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10 transfer window.